Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how to use hot corners on your iPhone or iPad. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now, a lot of Mac users know and love hot corners. By moving the pointer to one of the corners of the screen, you can trigger an action. It's a great way to have a shortcut that doesn't involve the keyboard. Now, you could do the same thing on the iPhone or iPad, but there are a lot of catches. First of all, you have to be using a mouse or trackpad on the iPhone or iPad. It doesn't work with your finger. You can't just tap the corner of the screen. So you have to have a pointer on the screen, which means you must connect some sort of pointing device. Now, a lot of people are already using a pointing device, especially with an iPad. So if you are, it makes sense to also configure hot corners. But hot corners aren't just a feature by themselves. They're in accessibility, part of assistive touch, and part of the dwell controls. The way dwell controls work is they assume that you can't actually tap or click anything, but you can move a pointer. So the idea is you move the pointer to something and you stop. And when you stop after, say, 2 seconds, then a tap occurs. If you don't want to tap, you keep moving. If you do want to tap, you pause and let the tap happen. Now, the good news is for just hot corners, you can actually turn most of dwell controlling off. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so here I'm going to demonstrate on an iPhone, although it's probably more likely you'll be doing this on an iPad. It works the same on both. So I'm going to go into Settings. And from Settings, I'm going to go down to Accessibility. And then from there, I'm going to go under Physical and Motion to Touch. And there I need to turn on Assistive Touch just to get the pointer on the screen, which I already have because I'm using a mouse to show you where I'm pointing instead of my finger, and you wouldn't see anything on the screen. So I have Assistive Touch turned on already. Now I need to go down to Dwell Controls, which are further down here. And I need to turn Dwell Control on. Let's talk about that for a minute. Once you turn Dwell Control on, you can notice that the pointer gets a little bit bigger, and as long as I keep moving it, it behaves the same. But if I stop, notice how the circle fills in and then it taps. So all I need to do is move a little bit again and it fills in and taps. The tap was 2 seconds, which is this time right here. So you can make it faster or slower by changing the 2 seconds. If I want to tap something, all I need to do is pause over it and it would tap. So you can see how it turned Dwell Control off. I'll go over here and actually click the mouse to turn it back on again. Now you can see how that's not going to work very well if you just want to use hot corners, because you're going to have to keep the pointer moving all the time or you end up tapping something. You could always move it over a spot where there's nothing to tap and then let it tap and don't move it again. That's fine. But what you want to do is pause Dwell Control. If you pause it, then most of the features of Dwell Control pause. One of the features that doesn't though is hot corners. So that's good news. So if we look for the Assistive Touch menu, it's this little button here that I could drag around. And if I actually go into that and then into Dwell, there's a way to pause Dwell. Now once I do that, I could stop moving and it won't tap. So I basically turned off Dwell, except it still works in some places. One of those places is over that little control. So I can go back into the menu there and back into Dwell and let's say turn it on, resume Dwell. Another way to pause Dwell is to go to Fallback Action. Fallback Action is what happens basically after the main action. Does it go back to tapping, or after one action does it pause? So I've got Dwell going. So if I stop right here, you can see it's going to tap. But now after that tap, it's paused. So there's 2 ways to pause Dwell. One is using that fallback action and making sure the first tap is kind of harmless. The other way is to just go into that menu here and pause it manually. Once you've got it paused, hot corners will still work. So let's finally get to the hot corners themselves. If I tap here, I can go into hot corners and you can see I've got 4 corners as you would expect. And I could set them to do things. Let's set the top left corner to go home. And now let's just go back here to this screen and let's try to use it. Notice that Dwell is still paused. It's not going to do anything even if I stop moving the pointer. But if I move the pointer to the top left, it kind of snaps into place like that and gets bigger. And then you see it fills in, but only the quarter of the circle that you see there then performs the action. And that happens even if dwell is paused. Let's go into Calculator here and say we want to get back to the home screen using dwell. I'll go back to the top left and there you go. It activates. So back in settings you see I can set hot corners to a variety of things. Let's go to bottom left here and you can see some of the things I could do. I could have it jump to the app switcher. I could have it open up the camera. I could have it go to Control Center. I could have it lock the screen. Lots of good things that you can do. But there's even more than that because if you go all the way down to the bottom, notice you can have shortcuts here. So for instance, I could go into the Shortcuts app here. I could add a new shortcut. I could simply add the action Open App and I could choose from the list of apps and let's have it go to the Calculator app. It could be something a little more interesting. And I can tap Done and you can see it says Open App here. Let's go in and change the name to that and done. So I've got the shortcut. All it does is open Calculator. But now I can go back into hot corners here and if I scroll down I should see Open Calculator in the list and I can assign that. So now I can go back to the home screen. When I go to the bottom left and let the hot corner activate, it's going to launch the Calculator app. So since of course there are a ton of possibilities with just shortcuts alone, there's a lot you can do here with hot corners. So it may be worthwhile giving this a try, seeing if you think the Assistive Touch menu button or having to pause dwell kind of gets in the way of it all. It's definitely a problem with using this. It's not as straightforward as it is on the Mac. But if you can get past that, then setting the four corners to perform some sort of action or shortcut could be a productivity boost. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.